While many rely on flappy paddles to shift their gears, those who have the means and the passion will not consider their rig complete without a good H-pattern or sequential shifter. In this video, we're going to have a look at the brand new VNM Shifter from a small company in Vietnam. At $200 US, this looks like a very tempting and welcome alternative to the Fanatec shifter. I've been using this shifter for the past 4 months, and today I'm going to share my experience with you. I'm Lawrence, welcome to the channel. Introduction. On the left you'll see all the sections in this video. I've put timestamped links to each section in the description below. While you're down there, please hit the thumbs up button to help YouTube suggest this video to others like you. 85% of the people who watch my videos are not subscribed. Please consider subscribing and hit the notification bell if you want to be notified about upcoming reviews. Seeing new products coming into the market is always very exciting. One of the areas which has a lot of demand but very little innovation is the H-shifter space. The main reason being that H-shifters are complicated and you can make do without them. The market isn't that lucrative unless you have a killer product. The main player in this market is the Fanatec H-shifter, and it does an exceptionally good job at its price point. Needless to say, when the team at VNM contacted me with video footage of early prototypes, I got excited and committed to buying one of the first shifters in order to review it. In fact, mine is the very first VNM shifter produced for the mass market. What also excited me was the ambition from VNM to be better than the Fanatec offering and still be cheaper. First impressions. This thing doesn't look like a first attempt at making a product. It's packaged and machined beautifully. Even I, with my untrained eye, can see the attention to detail and the precise engineering incorporated into this product. It's beautifully finished. The unit came with the sequential plate as standard, suggesting that its main purpose is sequential shifting. I think that they ship it this way because the sequential plate takes up quite a lot of space. We'll cover that in a later section. I got 3 variations of the H-pattern gate, allowing for 5, 6 or 7 gears, all plus reverse. You can of course just run the 7+R top plate, but it's nice to block off gears that you're unlikely to use to reduce potential misshifts. The mounting bracket is probably one of the most beautiful clamps I've ever seen on any sim racing product. It's very minimal and super functional. There are loads of mounting holes on the back of the shifter, and there are 4 mounting holes on the bottom of the shifter, so finding a way to mount it to your rig is not going to be a major challenge. Some people may want to side mount it, but I think that it was a wise decision to keep the mounting points towards the rear and bottom, as it preserves the sleek look of the unit. There's a clear effort made for those who enjoy truck simulation, with peripheral ports for trucking accessories on the rear housing. Exactly which peripherals work in it, I'm not sure. I wouldn't be surprised if they make an accessory themselves at some stage. There's a switch for changing between H-pattern and sequential, which means that the unit doesn't get 3rd and 4th gears confused with sequential up and down. The front of the unit sports an RGB logo, which is pretty funky and customizable to an extent. It comes with 2 beautifully machined shift knobs, one taller one which is ideal for sequential shifting, and a smaller ball-shaped knob which fits in the hand perfectly for H-pattern shifting. The Allen keys that come with it are actually really good, and they found a permanent place in the drawer within close range of my rig. Price. At $200, this is a very attractive price point. The table clamp shown was an extra $20. Its main competitor is the Fanatec sequential shifter, which is $250 or $270 if you want to plug it into USB. If you want a table clamp with it, that's another $40 for the Fanatec. Before you know it, you're paying $310 for a Fanatec shifter with the same features. I'll do some performance comparisons in later sections. For now, I'm focusing solely on the price. European prices are even higher for the Fanatec shifter, with the aforementioned $310 becoming €320, making the VNM shifter a very attractive prospect for those in Europe. However, shipping from Vietnam costs $60, and I was lucky enough not to be faced with customs or import duties. These are all very important factors to take into account when buying this shifter. Its other main competitor is the SHH shifter, which comes in at around €100 with feature parity. I think that the VNM does sit in a relative sweet spot, which does appeal to those in the market for a new shifter. Build quality. This thing is machined to within an inch of its life. There are no rough edges, everything is smooth and it looks like it should be there. It really is a beautiful feat of engineering with no plastic or inferior parts on show. I've been putting it through its paces over the past few months and I must say I'm very happy with the build quality. There are many things about this product which are surprisingly good. It's a lot smaller than the Fanatec shifter. Its footprint is a 110mm square and it's 240mm tall, including the shift knob. Everything has been done with intent and great precision. The only negative when it comes to build quality is the USB port, which seems to be a little bit loose and flimsy. It doesn't hold the USB cable as tightly as I would expect, although as this isn't a moving part, it never came loose or fell out or even lost connection. I also experienced an issue with the internal screws coming loose, which meant that the entire mechanism within the casing began to rattle. I raised my concerns with the engineers and I was informed that the first 20 shifters, of which mine was one, were produced and assembled by hand, and that this should no longer be an issue. The table clamp is beautiful as mentioned, although the corners are surprisingly sharp, especially on the inner top side, so just be careful. I think that the threaded bars are slightly longer than they need to be. This means that when they're mounted to my 80/20 rig, they're quite close to my leg. Again, this may not be a concern for most people, but I need to point it out in this review. Installation. I didn't need to check any manual for the basic installation. At first, I base mounted the unit to my universal shifter mount using the mounting holes underneath. It was rock solid and exactly what I would want and expect from a H shifter. It actually highlighted the amount of flex in the shifter mount on my Cimatec K2, which was a really good thing. After about a week of use, I switched over to the desk clamp, which is also incredibly sturdy. If anything, the desk clamp showed less flex in my shifter mount due to its lower mounting position. Having the clamp mounted also allowed me to make adjustments a lot more easily as there was nothing in the way. Mounting to a profile rig is not that intuitive though, as you need to offset the mounting clamp to ensure that the USB port is still accessible. I'd love to see some extra threaded holes underneath to accommodate a nice clean installation on a profile rig. As it stands, I find this mounting solution on my SimLab P1X a little bit clunky. Software. From a software point of view, this device is largely plug and play, it just works. There is however a software suite which allows you to get an insight into the products that are on the horizon for the VNM brand. You can calibrate the shifter in here, but you shouldn't need to as the device will come calibrated. You can calibrate the sensitivity and zones that the gears activate in quite easily. Again, you shouldn't need to do this, but if you want to create your own shifter gate, for example, with a different throw range, it's nice to have access to the sensor's configuration. The software is relatively straightforward, although needing to download a zip from GitHub isn't the ideal user experience. The only thing that you can really change on the shifter itself is the RGB LED on the front. You can change the colours, but unfortunately you can't just change it to be one solid colour. There are several modes to choose from, although seeing the difference between them can be quite difficult and quite time consuming. The only one that allows customization only allows pulsing from bright to dark continuously, which I actually found a tiny bit annoying. I'd love to see the ability to make it a solid colour and for it to just shut off when the PC turns off. Adjustment. Adjustment is easy. There's a hole in the side of the casing which allows you to increase the tension required to move the gear stick. I was able to adjust this so tight that the shifter wouldn't actually move anymore. Once you find your sweet spot, the tension remains constant, which is impressive, especially over time. Due to the ease of adjustment, I kind of expected it to loosen over time, but it didn't, at least not noticeably. With increased tension comes increased noise, but the noise is no worse than any other H shifter which can be considered somewhat realistic. In fact, I use this all the time, even while my kids are asleep just upstairs. You can raise and lower the gear knob within a certain range, which will allow most people to customize it exactly how high or how low they want the gear knob. Since I reviewed this product, VNM have actually renewed a new knob style. This new design relies on a little grip which you loosen, you can raise and lower the gear knob, tighten it again, and you're good to go. This is a very welcome innovation and appears to be well received by those who are fortunate enough to have this new feature. You can buy the shifter with specific shifter plates. The shifter plates shown are not all included in this package, but they were supplied to me for the purposes of this review. The different gates will suit different driving styles. Personally, I find the 6+1 the best all-rounder. You can only install the shifter plates in one orientation as all the corners are unique, which is nicely thought out. H-Pattern. This is what most of you came here for, so I'll cut to the chase. This is an excellent H-shifter. Its sporty shifter gate looks and feels better than the Fanatec, and although I had expectations that this shifter would not perform as well, I must say that I'm very pleasantly surprised. The weight once adjusted is incredibly realistic. It's every bit as good as the Fanatec shifter from a H-shifter point of view, and dare I say it, it's actually better in my opinion. Where the Fanatec gear stick seems to revolve around a relatively high part of the shifter casing, causing the angle of the gear stick to be a little bit unnatural, the VNM has a more intuitive gait with better throwing angles. In fact, it's not really something that bothered me about the Fanatec until I started using the VNM. The sound of the gears engaging is also a lot deeper and more mechanical sounding than the Fanatec. Again, I am very impressed. This is remarkably enjoyable to use, and it puts up with even the most heavy-handed of users. Shifting through all the gears is fluid and rapid. There's a nice pseudo-mechanical feel to the shifts, and as you go through the neutral position, it makes it feel like you're actually moving some mechanical forks within the gearbox. This is pleasant and rewarding. I would love if the lateral movement from the neutral position was heavier though. It takes quite a lot of force to get in and out of gears when throwing the lever forwards and backwards, but the left to right force required to shift is not constant, which is not disruptive, but it does take away slightly from the potential of the shifter. I am nitpicking here. This is a great H-shifter which I'd happily run on my rig if I raced H-Pattern exclusively. Sequential. Here's where the plot thickens, unfortunately. Sequential is very much an afterthought on this device. Firstly, unlike the Fanatec and SHH offerings, switching to sequential can take several minutes due to the need to remove the gear knob thread, and the entire top plate. In my opinion, the average sim racer expects easy transitions between sequential and H-Pattern without the need for tools. And unfortunately, that wasn't the end of my initial worries when it came to sequential mode on this device. Building the sequential mechanism into the top plate makes the top plate very complex, and the V1 sequential plate did not impress me at all. In the V1 top plate there are ball bearings which are spring loaded and adjustable, so you can change the weight of your sequential shifts. In its default configuration, the click that you get comes from retrofitted switches within the top, which are not actually connected to the circuitry at all. The result is that your shift happens at a different time to the audible click, which is very confusing. You can synchronize it, but you need to adjust it in the calibration of the software, and I prefer not to have to do this at all. After using the V1 top plate for extended periods, I also noticed some grease seeping out of it, which wasn't ideal. All in all, the V1 top plate sequential mode on this shifter reminds me of cheap mods one might do to a Logitech shifter. I found it functional but lacking enjoyment or fulfillment. For example, the SHH shifter, which is just over half the price, gave a far more rewarding sequential experience. I communicated my concerns with VNM and they promptly responded, and within weeks they had already developed a new shifter plate and sent one out to me. I honestly wasn't expecting much, but this is where the plot really thickens. What they've developed with the V2 top plate is absolutely exceptional. It's actually one of the most rewarding sequential shifting experiences I've had, and considerably better than the Fanatec offering. I even prefer it to the Heusenfeld sequential shifter, mainly due to its size and nice progressive feel. So why do they still offer the V1 as an option? Well, they cite that the V1 is a lot quieter than the V2, but the V2 isn't too loud for me to use while my kids are asleep, directly above my sim room. If it was my choice, I'd bin the V1 top plate. It was a first attempt and the V2 will make everyone far happier. It makes for a thoroughly enjoyable sequential experience and really throws the cat amongst the pigeons when it comes to deciding on a shifter for your setup. Final thought. After 4 months of ownership and consistent use of this product, I highly recommend the H-shifter experience, and I highly recommend the sequential V2 experience. However, the need for tooling to switch between the two makes this product an impractical solution for someone who wants both a H-pattern and a sequential, with no real ease of switching between them. I've done it many times now and it still takes a few minutes each time. Having said that, the respective H-Pattern and Sequential modes both outperform the Fanatec Shifter, which was the very bold ambition they set out to achieve several months ago. If they solve the top plate switching dilemma, they will capture a huge market share. However, right now I can only recommend them to you as a standalone H-Pattern or a standalone sequential product. If you're going to be switching between shifting modes, you need to make the sacrifice of time and effort each time you do so. If you have the space and the money, you could buy one of each and get the best of both worlds. However, that might not be practical for most users and it would double the price. This shifter is good enough to be considered a viable and affordable training tool for someone who's looking to improve their real life racing, and I can see it doing very well in the entry level professional market. The innovative new gear knob mechanism removes the need to use Allen keys for the gear knob thread removal. If they had a quicker release for the top plates, then they could allow for a toolless swap between H-Shifter and sequential mode. It's still not as quick as the competition, but as said, it does beat out the competition in both of those respective modes, so it's a real contender in my books. There's no console support, which is a pity, but as with similar products from smaller companies, the licensing costs associated with consoles are astronomical. The quality of machining and finishing is something that even large companies can aspire to. The research and development that has gone into this product in a relatively short period of time is commendable. VNM's public communication is exceptional, and their involvement with consumers has created a community who are all part of the amazing momentum. What's more exciting is that this shifter is only their initial offering. They're developing an entire ecosystem of products, which all seem to be getting similar amounts of love. If you're interested in their progress, I've posted a link to their Discord channel in the description, as they often post videos to gather user feedback in there. They're a company who cares, who listens, and who will go extremely far in this industry if they keep putting in the work that they've shown in the past year. Now, although it is in my opinion a better H-Pattern shifter and a better sequential shifter than the Fanatec will be going back on my rig after this review goes live. That may sound like it contradicts how great I think this shifter is, but during the past few months I've really missed the quick swap between manual and sequential modes, and also the ability to mount my Fanatec handbrake on the side of my Fanatec shifter without the need for additional brackets. As said, if you want to follow VNM's progress, you need to either join a Discord or a Facebook group. I've linked to both of them in the description below. They're worth joining and their team is extremely transparent about what they've got going on. If you want to order, check out their website vnmsimulation.com for full details and the latest pricing. Let me know what you think in the comments. I hope that this company will succeed, as there's plenty of space for them. I think that I don't speak out of turn by saying that sim racers welcome products like this with open arms. Thank you all for your time. Make sure that you hit the thumbs up button so that others get to see this video. I'm Lawrence. I'll chat to you later.